director of the BFA program. We are very glad today to host Uma Ray, who is an artist, researcher, and curator. I think we will know her very, very well.
Did Akia get stuck?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I think some internet issues. We can give a minute. Yeah, he's rejoining.
I disappeared for a moment. I don't know what about you.
Disconnected.
I was disconnected. Okay, so I'm going to repeat the last conversation that we had. We hosted Abe Bala, who spoke about the beginning of contemporary Indian art. It was a very interesting discussion. So we are hosting both researcher and artist, scholar and curators. The online mode that we got accustomed to since the days of the corona is actually helpful. We hosted artists from all over the world, and we would like, even in the offline mode that we are now continuing, we would still like to enjoy the advantages of hosting people from different parts of India and the world. So today our speaker is located in Kolkata. Next talks that we will have also people from Bombay, and we will also host people on campus. Thank you so much, Uma. Priyesh, over to you.
Thank you so much, Akia. Hi, I'm Priyesh. I'm the program manager of BFA program here at General University. So we welcome you all to the second talk in the series of Indonesian art and cultures. So today we have with us Uma Ray. Uma, born in Jamshedpur, is a Kolkata-based artist, a co-founding member of Unbound Studio, and associated with Urban Dialogues, an international community of artists collaborating on ideas through meaningful exchanges. She has been working with Experimental Kolkata since 2013 as a gallery manager, focusing on exhibitions and programming over the years. Her work evolved from her immediate experiences. She works across various media, incorporating drawings, video, installations, and music, exploring the expressive tactility of material in their most untampered state through her work. Current socio-political uncertainties that led to introspection and self-examination, inquiry to one's identity and the social positioning of the self at such times piqued her interest. So Uma has had shows at various places, including Portugal, New York, Egypt, amongst other places. So the title for today's talk is Chance Encounters, and the presentation would around be 1 hour long, and then we would have question and answers. So over to you, Uma.
Thank you, Priyesh, for the introduction, and thanks, Akia, for inviting me over today to be with you all. So finally it starts now. Well, I'd like to start my presentation by going back to my own college days, and why it is important is because those were the most I would say those were the initial days when I had my own challenges to overcome, and I had my first my teachers helped me with solving most of my problems, and it sort of helped me to understand and many things in terms of my work, about my practice, about the direction I was going to take. And somewhere it is important to relook at those works today and to put in context about the progression of my work and how it has been all these years. So I'd like to start share screen. Yeah. So I finished my graduation from Rabindra Bharati University, Calcutta, and Calcutta is like a big city where you have these markets which are full of materials, both industrial and any kind of materials that you would need to, just explore and experiment with. I graduated, I've specialized in sculpture. So, it was always important for us to, know the traditional techniques and the methods first, and then, you were free to explore any material you found interesting and wanted to work with eventually. So even if one wanted to work with alternative materials, it was not without understanding about how these materials react with one another, and the material relationships and the reaction with each other in a way. So when I went to Shantiniketan, however, it's a very semi-rural kind of a setting. We have this huge campus, and we have those residential areas which are where the faculty used to stay. And then there are the villages and the Khwai and the other regions, basically the mart, as we used to call them, and basically the ground and the forests and everything. So it was a very big shift for me in terms of looking at materials as they are readily available in the market, to coming to a place where nothing is available unless one wants to explore the organic and work with the local material which is more easily available. So in the beginning I had my own problems in terms of what I should work on, and I could just find those bhad, basically the kulhards, the tea kulhards that one has, and I used to sort of play around, smoke them in you have these terracotta firing pits where you smoke them and you get colors out of them. So I would just experiment with those. So those initial days in my master's first year was about exploring what I could lay my hands on locally, and then try to play along with those, and just combine them, fire them, and then they would get all combined together, and then probably hang them from a height, and the shadows. And so basically I was just playing with the form and the material and what the materials that were locally available. So I call them stringed memoirs, because most of these kulhards came from the adda sessions that Bengal is so known for, where friends would get together. We would discuss so many ideas, we would discuss what happened in classes, and then we would just sip out of the kulhard. And in a way, each of these kulhards sort of was a memory for me, and when I fired them in the pit and the colors which came, so it was all very interesting, though it was not exactly, you can say that it was a warm-up process to what would eventually I would be eventually working on later on. So these are the first experiments with it. Then there are many trees, and we find all these seeds lying everywhere. So I used to go collecting every morning under the trees, finding any seeds that were available, and trying to combine them and juxtapose them with compressed boards and boxes made out of it. So all these are not really very that way very important, but I would still call them important in the sense to me, because these were my first exercises. I was really struggling to balance my first experience with materials in abundance which I could use in my work, and then coming to a place where nothing was available readily unless I wanted to overcome that challenge and look for what was available locally and try to work along those lines. So yeah, that way these works are very important. I also met at this time some of my faculty, my professors, who helped me a great deal to understand as to, why you are having a problem, and if you're having it, then is there a problem in the way you're looking at the material? I mean, if you're making a sculpture or an object out of it, why do you find it so challenging? So basically it was, they started talking to me, and I could, through their questions to me, I could start understanding my own practice even better. I was trying to clarify to myself as to, my own doubts and how I could come out of them. So it was very important. Those conversations were very important in shaping my practice in those initial days. Then, very incidentally, I chanced upon, Shantiniketan is also known for embossed leather work. You get wallets, keychains. It's a very small scale industry basically. And you get all these leather, chart, we used to call them, basically the extra leather pieces, bits and pieces. They would be stored somewhere and finally they'll be burnt or something. So I chanced upon this small workshop where they stored all these chart leather pieces, and I went and collected them by the kilo. And while I was, it was a meditative process in the sense that, while I was trying to clarify my own doubts about materials, about shapes, about forms, about, other things, it helped me, I sort of started working on joining these pieces together. It was in a way joining the thoughts together also, if I may say so. And that meditative process helped me to clear many doubts, conversations within the self, along with the conversations I've had with my professors. So all of these experiences together sort of helped me to gain more confidence and to look beyond the materiality of objects and try and contextualize the struggles in some other way. So it was a labor intensive process. It took me almost a year to stitch, not a year, but around 8 months or so to stitch these entire pieces together. And this was my journey. And as I said, from Jamshedpur, which is a very small town, to Kolkata, a very, very big city, and then again back to Shantiniketan, which was a dream come true for me, but also in terms of, because I had come from from a college and from a city where everything was available, I was struggling within to come to terms with the lack of materials as I would want to work with them. So all those thoughts would, were jotted down in these things, and somehow come to terms with my struggles in a way. So it's called The Three Worlds Embarking on a Journey, and for me the journey came as a whole from sort of connected from Jamshedpur to Kolkata to Shantiniketan, and of course back again. It was also during this time, around my 7th year, that finally I was able to, clarify many of my doubts and could finally focus on developing my works and, as I said, contextualizing my struggles in some other form and not just thinking about the materiality. So I had these extra plastic sheets, which was just like, for packing material, and I didn't want to spill because I used to work a lot with ink and stuff. I didn't want to spill on the wall. So it was basically a precautionary method for me. So I had pasted all these, not pasted, but taped these plastic sheets onto the wall so that it's not splattered with the ink I used to work with. And eventually it became a kind of maintaining a diary for me, you know. So every day I would, early morning we used to have our art history classes, and some of these classes were very thought-provoking, I mean. And then I would come to my studio, have tea, read newspaper, listen to music. That was my daily routine basically. So as soon as I finished my art history classes, I would rush to my studio as if, I mean, I needed to get out with what was going on in my mind. And this became a way of whatever came to my mind to just jot it down there, you know. Sometimes it would just be the ink splatter and play around with the ink basically. Sometimes it would be an idea triggered by what happened in the class, or it could be a line from the headlines of a newspaper or something. So yeah, so basically it's called finding myself through my thoughts. So again, every time I would finish with one plastic sheet, I would replace it with another, and it just went on and on and on until I had these large number of plastic sheets which I didn't know what to do with. And then I thought, I started playing around. So most of my works have been very playful activities. I have never aimed at, you know, creating in that sense an artwork, but I have always enjoyed the process and the possibility of pushing myself in even in dire circumstances, like even when I'm in a problem, or even if I don't have a proper material or anything, I can still continue to work even in, you know. So I just started playing around with these plastic sheets. I hung them, and then I sort of recorded these in the video, which I would like to show now. I'm sorry, can you all see my screen?
Not yet.
There seems to be a problem actually. Anyways, going back to, unless Priyesh, if you want to play the video, if you can.
Uma, we can give it one more shot, and if it's not working, then we will go on.
Sure. I can try it once more.
Yeah, because it was just working.
Yeah, right. So yeah, I'll just play it.
Yeah, it's working. We can see it. Uma, I think you need to mute yourself.
Can you all hear me?
We can hear you. There is an echo.
No, we can't hear the sound.
But we can't hear the sound.
Yeah, so that was one of the videos, and the idea, the final presentation in my review, the final review, I had this work installed, and it was then projected with the same video of these plastic sheets that you just saw. So the recording of the plastic sheets that were taken were projected back on these plastic sheets to create like even more many layers, I mean like multiple layers and multiple shadows, and with this eerie sound playing in the back. And it was a very small space, just enough for a person to move around. They had to traverse through these plastic sheets basically, so there was not much movement possible otherwise. After this, I got interested with multiplicity of layers and of material, of ideas, of as I said, that the notion of the idea of rituals in a way, the diaristic entries. And this work is important in the sense that we had this this rule that the female students wouldn't be allowed to stay out after 9. So we had to be back in our hostel by 9 o'clock, and we really didn't know what to do at that time after finishing dinner. I would usually I would usually read or just work on small things. It was another like a small studio space for me. And I would continue to work, but the difficulty was during load shedding, And at that time, I had this video camera, which I started exploring even further. And I felt that, it was in an act of resistance, basically, you can call it, because I started recording my movements, my personal objects of what I did in those hours after 9, and, how did I spend my time, basically. Confined within my room in a sense of I'm feeling secured. That had somewhat in a way being imposed on me to say that we are trying to secure your position here, and that for that it is necessary that you are confined within your quarters after 9. So, and then finally those private videos were finally displayed onto, again, layers of plastic sheets, which again had those thoughts of those ideas of, a ritualistic method of process, a diaristic entry. Every day I would go back to my hostel room, and I would start, recording my movements, about taking my personal, private utensils, maybe sometimes my books and things, and then it was projected onto these things. So as you can see, there were mirrors, there were various biomesh, which were all, somewhat, related to the idea of confinement for me. So I started using many layers and the projection and how it broke the entire imagery for me in a way. And so again I'll start the video here once more, if you don't mind. sorry, in my videos you might find that the quality is sometimes compromised, and it lacks that polish, which is sometimes it's important to have that. Unfortunately, I have always felt that it doesn't work for me. The reason why is that sometimes I play and replay and again replay the same videos over different surfaces. So what you see here now is a video recording of a recorded image which is already projected onto the surface, and it might be that it would be repeated, this whole process would be repeated several times. So what you see here now as a video is basically a recording of the videos that I had made of my private life, and which was being projected onto these surfaces. So, which is why there are those glitches, and there are those those marks, and the footage is really not of that great quality. But that raw quality is something which I find interesting, is because I find that somewhere you need to hide, and somewhere how much you can share with people. It somehow works for me very well. I like that. I always strive for that as well. Having said that, moving on to my other works. Again, these are some studies that I was making of myself. I got interested in layers of see-throughness and the shadows that the interplay of shadows they would create. And these would be the mobiles. So most of my works during that period were trying to find some meaning in my life and my work, and to as I said in the beginning, that trying to contextualize the struggles not through materials, the choice of materials, and not get just obsessed with the lack of it, but try and show those contextualize those struggles or those inner the challenges of the inner struggles through what I was working on. It was mostly the ideas. It was something, the battle of the mind in a way, and it was necessary for me to look within to be able to solve most of my problems. And so after college, I was looking at different platforms, different organizations, different workshops and residencies where I could meet like-minded people and work, sort of exchange ideas. So I was doing a lot of workshops at Intac. It was not necessarily just art workshops, but others also. So I was meeting different kinds of people because I felt that it was somehow helping me to, broaden my own horizons in a way. So I came across this Michael Chang, who had envisaged the Vitruvian woman, and it was shown in two different places in two different formats. In one format, you had the monitors laid out on the ground. It was almost like a topographic thing, where these had been given the shape of a woman thing, and there were 34 artists working on 9 such body parts, so to say. And then we had this other installation where we had the thing, and the screens had these videos playing out of it. I had chosen to work with the feet, and also here I would like to say that I'd always felt very interested to work with children, especially children come with with a very fresh outlook in life, and Aritra Biswas was he's now quite grown up actually, but at that time he was just like around, I think where in 2009 he was around 10 years old. But he was already writing poems, and they were beautiful poems actually, and he was a prodigy that way. And so I mean, I used to ask him to collaborate with me sometimes, and just say that, okay, this is what I'm working on, and he would just come up with these couplets and say that this is what I have written, and I felt very excited, and I made it a point to use them as part of my work. So so these were the videos that I did for the Vitruvian Woman project, and it led on to another entire body of work, which is Substance of My Offerings. This was a couplet by Lalla, and my works were mostly taken from that main idea from Aurithro Biswas and Lalla's couplets, and they were sort of, again, I was sort of intrigued by the idea of I, and in Hindu philosophy I was reading a little bit. The one music that sort of I have been playing since my early years in college, my go-to in a way, sort of to rewind and to relax, is Mandukya Upanishad by Pandit Jasraj. And every time I work, I just play that music, and it helps me to, calm down, and it sort of helps me to think also. And all these years, that has been my go-to music in a way, and that sort of also shaped my thoughts and my practice a great deal. That is why I'm mentioning it now. So as I said, how much should I hide and how much should I reveal has been one of my central thoughts in a way in my work, where I don't want to reveal too much and I don't want to hide. But sometimes it could be, by making the videos not really visible that well, so that people are not able to understand exactly whether, like you saw in the Confined and Secured video, that the quality of the image was not that great. As for Finding Myself, the plastic sheets were, sort of, it made it difficult to understand what was written there. So again, as I said, that it's to how much do I reveal and how much do I keep back with me. I didn't have a handycam or for a very long time. I see young students these days, and they always have a DSLR camera, which I find very interesting. But when I was young, I never had a camera, unfortunately, which is why my works were never that well photographed, unfortunately. So here, as you can see, these are not photographs, these are scans of my body part, my hair, and it's called Substance of My Offerings. My hand, which helps me to work, my mind, my brain, my hair, the flowers and everything. These are all scans, basically. They have been all stitched together. And so I never let, if I don't have something, I never let that become a problem for me. I think that it is imperative for a person to overcome their problems and try to look for innovative ways to overcome those problems and to work on that. And this remains till date one of my most important, for me, a very important work. This was also a time when I met with Urban Dialogues. We are a community of artists based globally, coming from Nigeria, India, Czech Republic, America, Rio de Janeiro, Japan, Copenhagen. And we all met virtually. We never actually, until very recently, I still haven't met some of them. we met virtually, and we decided, through lots of conversations and exchanges over text messages and all, we decided, that it would be interesting to work. I mean, let not be a communication be a barrier. I mean, just because we don't sit face to face, it doesn't mean that we can't work. So even with Vitruvian Woman that you saw, I didn't know Michael Chang, or I didn't know any of these artists. But finally, the video that I showed, I mean, it was a compilation of videos coming from different artists. So all of these artists we may know, I mean, virtually only, I mean, in Facebook or, text messages, but never face to face. But that doesn't stop us to exchange our ideas or to collaborate. So this show was held. This was one of our first shows, and what happens with surrealism, like the automatic drawings, we decided that it could be digital images in the similar lines. So every week or so we would send some images to on a common platform, and then each of the artists would decide to work on one specific image and then add to it, and then another artist would take that edited image and would work on his own, maybe add a video or a sound to it, and then it would take a very hybrid form. And this is what happened. So you can see that there are the images of cellular jail in Kolkata juxtaposed with street views from Berlin. So that is how we started working on these. This is a very, I mean, for today it's a very it's a method which many artists are using, but at that time it was a very novel approach for us. So which is why it made us very interesting, and we were always very excited to try out different things. In 2018, we finally, I mean, some of us were able to meet with the rest of the members of the team, and we had this show in Portugal, which was, which was very well received, in fact. Coming to Where the River Meets Its People was a project which was developed in Jamshedpur. It was part of Negotiating Routes, Ecologies of the Byway, supported by Khoj Workshop. So I focused on the region, on my neighborhood in Jamshedpur. So here that you can see is the part where Sonari is, and this is the river Kharkai, and this is Subarnarekha. So the two most important rivers, only two most important rivers which flows through Jamshedpur and moves onward. And then there are these villages which are strewn across the region. And Jamshedpur, as I don't know if people know about it too much, but Jamshedpur is the first industrial, the first steel plant which was, which was started in Jamshedpur, and which was envisioned by Jamshedji Tata, and that is how the name Jamshedpur came from the founder. So, I mean, it was a very, the first steel industry was set up at Sakchi, and eventually the city limits and with the industrial expansion, the city limits grew. Now Jamshedpur has also become like an industrial hub. There are small and large-scale industries which have which are dotted across Jamshedpur in Adityapur, Gamharia district area. There are many industries, and most of these industries are on the same land taken from the indigenous communities which are based in Jharkhand, which are to be found in Jharkhand. And my aim through this project was to look at these communities. I mean, these are the people that I grew up looking at, and I mean, we as children, I remember the Tusu Parab, the Baha festival, and everything, the songs connected to it. So there are many beautiful memories, and I would go to this Domohani region. It's called Domohani because there are these two rivers which are flowing inwards. It's called Domohani. And I would go there, I would take a boat ride, I would visit these villages, and all these villages have mostly local farmers. So this river is actually the means of people coming from these villages to Sonari, which is basically here, and bringing their local produce, children going to school, people going to factories. So here I think some of these images that you can see, this is they would be cycling and bringing their cycles, put them on the boats and then cross over to the other side of the township. With the Adivasi population, the indigenous communities, I knew them, I saw them while growing up, but there was very little I really knew about them, about their lives. And we read so much about Adivasi protest marches and everything, but this was the first time that, before this project started, and which is why I actually applied for the project, was, I decided that, I wanted to work with them, listening to their stories, visiting their villages, and understanding, the problems that they are facing. Their festivals are at risk, their survival is at risk. With the growing city limits, their forests, the mountains, the hills, basically, Maramburu, something that, that is their God, that is in a way very close to them, almost like a family member. It pains them to sort of see that being snatched away, taken up by real estate or, road expansions and things like that. So, it's a very peaceful protest march. They are clad in their traditional attire, beating on their traditional drums and everything, but also interestingly carrying their weapons with them, their swords, their daggers, their kulhari and all. So it's quite interesting, but also saddening to be part of these protest marches. They are silent mostly, except for those those sounds, these drums. The beat on that is like it just throbs inside you, and it makes you think as to at what cost, basically. So there are these mines. Jharkhand is like very rich in minerals and the industries, and there are Dhanbad coal minery, copper mines, uranium mines, limestone quarries, factories, all sorts of and then you start thinking, like, we're talking about development, like at what cost, and what exactly are they getting from it? Because I used to visit these villages. Some of them are in like very remote areas. Children have to, if they are at all enrolled in schools, some of them are not. Some of these villages which I went to were like Sabhars and Birhors, which are the PTG communities there, and unfortunately they are very nomadic in nature, and they're not really settlers that way, and it's difficult, and then we have a chapter in from the Tata chapter, the TSRDS, which had adopted during that time 8 villages of these PTG communities, and then there are other NGOs who are also working towards creating employment opportunities, sustainability and all. They made sure that these children would be enrolled in schools nearby. But again, it's a kind of a problem. Why? Because these children, once they are educated, they do not want to come back to their villages, or would want to further their education and go to cities maybe for looking for better prospects. So then you start thinking about, what happens with the traditions, because in any case, the growing city limits, the expansion of urbanization, it has had it has had its benefits as well as had its problems with, influencing their cultural heritage that way. So this is how early morning the villagers with their produce or, going to factories cross by the boat. This is Paika, one of the villages that I went to, Choga. And I was looking at these children. So basically the project had 3 parts to it: the dissemination of information, where I visited these villages and I would share stories, I would share images from their daily lives, and I would show it to the people, or show it to the community at large. That was my whole point. I wanted to share their private lives and the problems that they are facing out in the world. And then there was the video which I made, which was a little poetic in the sense that it sort of documented the journey of these people when they are crossing over, and it's called Dreamers on the River. And these photographs that you're seeing of the children is basically, I was thinking in terms of this particular image that you see is one from the Sabar community, so these are like one of the most impoverished Adivasi community, primitive tribal groups. And the other was a workshop with school children. As I said, I always find it very interesting to work with children. And incidentally, Jharkhand, Saraikela, East Singhbhum, is also known for the Saraikela Chhau dance. So it was interesting for me to ask these children. So one of the villages that is close to the Domohani region, located in the same region, there is a school there, very primary school, and I went and I wanted to have a workshop with these children, trying to ask them because most of these children have seen Chhau dance, but how much they know about the tradition of mask making and something so close home. Mobani Chhau and Saraikela Chhau are 2 different distinct styles. So I wanted to have this workshop with school children where I could, they could make masks out of it, and it was very interesting. The final work that I work as in that sense that I did was a homage to the relationship the people had with the river there, the community, and their relationship with the nature. And this was a very site-specific and time-specific work. It was only installed there for 4 hours maximum, because the whole idea was not to leave any traces, in the river. I didn't want to intervene in that very sacred river, and I did not want my presence to be felt as, sort of as an intervention that way to the community who were living around it. So I just went, I installed the work, which I felt was my homage to my tribute to the river and its people. And I felt that after taking it back after dusk, I just deinstalled it and I just took it back with me, and I dismantled the whole thing. So also with these works, one of the reasons why most of my works are also not documented is because I believe in ephemerality. I believe that nothing exists for too long. And so it is okay with me if it exists for a short time, and it's not, it can be organic, it can just decay, it can just die, or it can just, melt, or it can just erode or something. But that is the lifespan it had. And the only thing that I have now are images of that and the memory of it, basically, of having been there amongst the people and looking at their lives, their daily lives of crossing the river, bringing with them their local produce, going to factories and coming back home. It was a very sacred and a very deep feeling for me to imagine. I mean, how strong those feelings were. So as a result, this was Monuments to the River, my tribute to the community and the river, basically. This is again a poem, a couplet by Aritro Biswas, and not just the poem, but he also composed. He was a good pianist, he is a good pianist also, and he composed a tune specifically for this video, and I'd like to share this video with all of you.
No. This is
Uma?
we could use this one. Yeah.
Hi, tell me. Are we running out of time, I think, right?
Uma, if you want to share sound, you need to specify it while sharing. So you will have to unshare. And while sharing, again, you will have an option on the top right, something like this, where you can share sound as well.
I see. So you can't hear, is it?
Yeah, we can't. We just see the images without the sound.
I see. Can you try, Akia, playing that video by any chance? Maybe I can stop share.
I'll try, Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, I'll try.
That's disabled.
We can't hear you.
You can't share?
Yeah, we are unable to share.
Can I try once more? Maybe it will work this time.
You need to specify that you are sharing this sound. Uma.
There will be an option on the top saying share sound.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Okay, I'll just, this is my last, I think we are also short of time right now. So I'll just,
Lucky. It's working.
so that was that. I think for a 13-year-old something, it's a fantastic job that Arithro did. And it's sort of, I'm really very proud to have collaborated with this boy who was able to compose this tune. I don't know how he did it, but this tune is entirely his own, as are his poems, which I have been constantly using time and again in my work. And to be able to portray that angst, of these people and their daily struggles and their life and everything in that 2-minute music, that tune, it's fantastic for me. So going back, I think we are running out of time now, and that's about it, I think. And then I have these drawings, which I called engagements in isolation. So even when I'm in a state where I can't work, somehow there are days when I simply can't bring myself to do anything. Either I'm too tired or, feel a little frustrated of nothing is coming to me, that kind of a moment. I don't stop at all. I just keep working on something or the other. It could be a drawing, it could be a wood carving. So yeah, these are basically you know yeah, this is what my work is about basically. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Uma. Am I audible? Uma?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was nice to see the range of mediums that you have worked with. And through your presentation, we could see that how these were informed by the conditions that were there at the time that you were working. So we will open it up for question and answers. We have one question in chat, but if anybody online would like to ask anything. All right, we'll go for the question that we have. So there's a question in chat. Did you ever notice a difference in the thought processes and ideas and stuff when you worked with those artists from different countries? Basically, did their different geographical location and cultures have any visible impact on the kind of art they wish to make? And the kind of ideas and thoughts and emotions they wanted to articulate?
That's a very good question, I think. Pragya, thanks for the question. No, I didn't think that there were some, differences in geographical locations can really lead to people, thinking differently. I mean, we are, after all, human beings. And human beings have very common, how do you say, it could be relative, thoda ya zyada jo bhi hai, but more or less they feel the same way and they think the same way. And I think it has been, I mean, as I said in the very beginning, the whole point of engaging with these engaging with these people from different artists globally was to broaden my understanding and broaden my own horizons. So I was out there for a need of my own, and I don't think when you're open to other people's ideas, it only helps you grow. So I don't think that I mean, it's you can say that, yes, I mean, there are some differences in ideologies, maybe, I mean, with the cultural baggages that we each come with, but it's not too much of a difference, I would say. And if there are any, it only opens up new perspectives and thoughts also, right? So we should be open to that. And it is always better, I mean, if you want to learn, if you want to grow, it's always better to be open to newer thoughts, newer ideas, and how different people, not just artists, I'm saying that, I did a workshop at INTAC as well. It was a conservation and preservation of manuscripts, because I was very much interested in Indian miniature, and it was fantastic to sort of hold these 200-year-old manuscripts in my hands and to be able to work on them. So I used to meet and work alongside students from museum studies and restoration, conservation people and all, and it only broadened my scope of understanding. So I did not really say ki, acha, this person thinks differently, or it never really came to my mind. I was always open, and I always sort of took what they said. I found it interesting.
We have another question from Akhil. how do you see the relation between indigenous in your area and your own contemporary practice?
Wow. So, as I said, I first and foremost I think of people as human beings. I'm a human and they are human, and I don't know what is contemporary. I am a little concerned about these terminologies that we have, these framework of ideas, and what is folk and what is craft and what is art and what is high art, what is local and what is global and what is the global art scene. I don't really know. And as I say that, I looked at these people that I grew up seeing around me, and their songs, the kind of decorations that they have and the kind of life that they lead has always been an inspiration for me. I used to see these women clad in heavy boots, going to factories, working in furnaces, driving road rollers around the factory areas, and ambulance vans for that matter, TMH ambulance vans. I saw women driving those. So I mean, when people talk about women empowerment and all such things, I think sometimes that well, it has existed, and I've never. I mean, these are terms that I just come across, and it sort of keeps you apart from what you have seen around you. It's a different thing. And there, I mean, if anybody were to explore these their cultural heritage, if I were to say other, these people, these indigenous communities, it is very fascinating. The kind of musical instruments that they use, the kind of sports that they play, kati, for example, the kind of the dances, their songs, they're so rich, but unfortunately all of this is getting lost. And I was not there to intervene as an artist, it was more to understand these people that I had always seen around me while growing up, and to understand closely their lives, their cultural heritage. Unfortunately, most of it is getting lost now, and it is not to do with my practice. I don't see my practice separate from me as a human being, first and foremost. So, as I said in the beginning, that most of my works are playful activities. I do it for myself, for my joy. It is not because I'm trying to create art or a contemporary art piece or any such thing. It is more because certain things, I have some thoughts and ideas looking at certain things, and then it sort of influences my work. For example, the space division, the black and white drawings that you saw, I mean, they are patterns that usually one would see on their walls, the beautiful wall murals that the Santalis make. It's fantastic. And so is many aspects of their life, which is so less known to us. And that was the whole point of my project, to make more people know about it. But it was not from the point of view of an artist. It was more, my project was more from the point of view of a fellow individual, fellow human, and to appreciate the struggles in their lives, to appreciate their journey, their stories, the kind of problems that they are facing, and to try and understand that, to sympathize, to empathize with them, more importantly. Yeah.
We have all the PhD students sitting with us right now. I think they will have questions.
Yes, Arjun.
I have a question, but it's like when you showed us your artwork about like video on how like daily life of people. It reminded me when I traveled a lot in the winter break, holidays. I did a long road trip across India. It can obviously pass many villages. And I did a boat ride. So in the boat ride, I noticed that like the hardship is like I saw actually people move motorcycles from one part of the street to another, the other side. And I fell in the water because it was so heavy whether the boat toppled. And the hardship was lifting that up and trying to get the boat back on floating is like, yeah, so like this reminds me of it. That's it. It was
Any questions, any thoughts? My mom is a follower of, so at home have
I'm sorry, it's not very clearly audible.
clearer now? Yeah, not well. Is it clearer now?
Yeah.
My mom is a follower of Buddhism, and at home we have this gong-like thing, which if you tap with we have a special wooden stick coated with some cloth, and we tap it with, and if we like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like a circular, cylindrical thing. You just touch the edges of it, and it's the sound out.
Yeah.
Was that the instrument you used in your last piece of art?
It was a Tibetan bell actually. It's very similar to the bowl that you're saying, but it was a Tibetan bell. Yeah.
That was my question. I really liked the sound. I was actually checking something on my laptop. I was trying to join this meeting. Then I immediately heard this and I was captivated.
Thank you so much. Means a lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vina, for the wonderful talk. And we will continue this series so next Tuesday as well. And we'll be constantly in touch with you, Vina. And our students will have interaction with you. Online, offline for sure sometime soon.
Thank you, Priyesh.
Thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you all for having me here today. It was nice. Thank you, Akia. Thank you, Priyesh. Thank you, Sonam. Thank you, Payal.
Thank you, Uma.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you.
Thank you.